So now we are recording. We're going to convert this to video right afterwards. All right. So let's start here. This is all from the big packet. I just happened to decide that. I think I got a lot of questions from the small packet, so I just decided to go with the big one. Okay. What can we say about GMOs? What was it? Pest resistance and drought seems like the biggest thing that GMOs are doing nowadays, right? So this question might have to be altered. They do produce higher yields as well, but I think a lot of that was done with hybrid seeds in the 1930s. So I would say, I would rephrase this question to reflect the fact that the major benefits of GMOs nowadays are pest resistance and also make it possible for you to grow plants using less water, which is the same thing as drought resistance. Now, what if okay, how about this? What if I said, what was a major benefit of the 1930s? And I want to say the two plants, okay, so now I'm pointing this out here. The two plants that benefited the most in the 1930s, we know that was rice and corn. And I know in the 1930s that was hybrid seeds, not GMOs. This is now the third agricultural revolution. So I'm referring to the third one. So these are other questions I could ask. So these are things that I would expect you to know, but lay it on it. This is that third agricultural revolution. And I guess the other thing I could say is definitely then that did yield higher yields. Like in other words, you did get higher yield plants during this time. That was the definite effect of the green revolutions. And according to the AP, that's not GMOs. Like the 1930s, it was hybrid seeds, not GMOs. Okay? And now that's recorded for everyone to hear. All right. Family farmers in more developed countries and less. Okay, what is a problem they both face? What if I were to, well, I could reverse it and say, what's a problem that's unique to only one or the other? But let's say, what's a problem that they both face? Access to fertilizers, inadequate income, access to transportation infrastructure, surplus production. Okay, declining market demand. That's definitely not going to be true. You can never be declining market demand because what's happening with the world overall? What's that? Population's going up. So there's no way that you could say there's a decline in demand. Doesn't make any sense. So I like that. So that's one that you should all know. What if I were to reverse this and say, like, what is a problem that MDC farmers have that only they have? Then I could try and make it so that's only an MDC issue, right? Something along those lines. But basically, with this one, surplus production lowering prices is something that all in the world face, because usually it's a global market price. Okay. But you should, so if all of these, whether it's LDC or MDC, if we're talking about globally, they should not face a global decline in market demand. Not anytime soon. That wouldn't make sense. That could be a good alternate question. See what I'm saying? Okay. Yes, question.
So what was the answer to that?
It's overproduction. They both face that problem because it makes food prices cheap, right? Okay, and that's a lot of food prices. The food price is global. That there's like a global market for the food, and the price can be affected globally by overproduction. After corn, the most important crop in the U.S. mixed crop. Most important is a bad way of phrasing it. Perhaps we should say the most, the second highest produced crop, the second highest crop in terms of production. It's soy. Corn and soy are on top. A couple of reasons for that. Okay, what if I asked you guys for why that is? Why are corn and soy on top? If I were to ask you why corn is on top, you should know a couple of things about this. Animal feed, yes. Animal feed, corn syrup is in everything. And soy gets added into everything as well. It's all over the place. It's something that's added into bread or other things. It's why they're so dominant. They are quite often an ingredient in everything. But for corn, if I were to ask you why corn is so important, it's animal feed and corn syrup. Now notice a lot of that feed then means that corn, the low prices in corn are largely supporting the meat industry, right? So again, corn subsidies, thinking of a lot of questions here, equals junk food, right? Chips, which can be made out of corn, equals the syrup, and then it also equals the meat industry, but not fruits and veggies, right? The number one thing we don't do with corn is eat it as a vegetable. That's, and that's probably the best thing that we could be doing with it. Okay, in the United States, many farms are integrated into a large food. I didn't like this question. I have to rephrase this. This gets into how would I rephrase this? I don't like the way this is worded. So agribusiness, so I mentioned this in class. I could rephrase this question. Businesses lobby the government. That makes it political. Agribusiness seems to be the economic and political effects. Like in other words, it's partially the economics of running a farm and making a profit, but because we're saying business, it implies everything that businesses do today in modern, world, which is also lobby governments or try and get governments to do what they want. So there's also that political connotation. Commercial agriculture, the word commerce comes into play there. It's mainly just that. Okay, now here's another alternate question I could give out here. Industrial agriculture goes best with the idea of processed foods. What does this mean? Remember the standard definition? I did this several times. I could see using this as a question. I did this several times. I said the number one definition for industrial agriculture is that food, yes?
From the farm to the people, that crossing between.
Yes, it takes several steps to get from the farm to the people. So there's an alternate question. I take an answer that's not on there, food processing, and I make it something. You should know that processed foods goes heavily with the idea of industrial agriculture, because what we're saying with that is that food takes several steps to get from the farm to the consumer. Several things are happening to it.
What's the answer?
It's not worded well. I'm not going to worry about the correct answer for that. I wanted to give you guys how I could phrase that better. I believe the answer, well, the other question that was phrased better asked about the economics, like which word goes best with the economic and political nature of modern day agriculture, and that's agribusiness. Okay, common difference between farms and an LDC and a farm and an MDC. This one came up a little bit in some classes, the amount of crop produced in a year. I might rephrase this, the amount of crop each farm produces, the amount of income each farm gets, not the importance of the crop to the farmer. That's a bad question. I might be more of a false answer. Okay, guys, know your differences between farms and LDCs and MDCs. MDCs, they are more likely to like ship food, right? It's not going to be consumed on the farm. It's more likely to be shipped. In an LDC, they're more likely to consume it right there on the farm. In MDCs, the food is more likely to go somewhere other than a store next, right? It's more likely to go to somewhere where it gets processed. So the food is, the first place it goes after the farm is probably not the market, meaning the consumer, or I should say just consumer. Okay, the first place it goes to is not likely to be the consumer. That's a good thing to know about MDC farms. MDC farms increasingly are specialized and only do one thing. That's about it. farmers, it's less likely to come from family farms like in MDCs. We have less family farms, more family farms in LDCs. I do like that. I do like the idea of working in something where you realize that MDCs, the first place the food goes to is not the consumer. Okay? Maybe I can make some kind of question that relates to that. According to the map of agricultural workers, okay, we don't need the map. Let's say, what if I did this? If 50% of the labor force is engaged in agriculture, if it's that high, I don't care. The number one thing you guys should know, and I've got to do this one better. You should be looking for countries that are clearly staged to very, very low development, right? So you want to look for the least developed countries. And by the way, probably non-desert countries. A Middle Eastern country might be, not a good one. So I will redo this question to make that more obviously the case. South Africa is developing more, so that's probably not a good answer. Nigeria is developing more a bit. You want the least developed countries that have farming. So I will rephrase this. What I will be looking for are some very obvious stage 2 non-desert type countries, right? Yes. I'm not going to, none of these are going to end up being the answer. Okay? Don't worry about that. I'm thinking that we were probably looking at Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe seems the best to me because South Africa is developing, so it's not going to be that. Chad, Libya, Egypt, too much desert there. Nigeria also developing quite a bit by comparison, so I'm not sure I like either one of those answers. I would go for the landlocked, low developed African countries without deserts, right? Or countries that are just not landlocked, very low development. All right? A lot of those examples in there are out of Africa, but it could be not there. All right. Yeah, that's what I put. What is the only aspect of farming China will not be short in? We just kind of went over this, guys. Yeah, it's going to be labor. Now, hold on. What if I reverse this? What if I were to say, what's the only thing that in a more developed country, they are most likely going to have a problem with shortage of, all right, well, this. What if I said given the recent, all right, I'm going to use this example. Given the recent political climate in America, what's the one thing that truck farms, which are in the American Southeast, right? What if I didn't say America? You should know that truck farms are America's Southeast. What if I said, given the recent political climate, what's the number one thing that truck farms could find themselves having a shortage of in future years? What's been the recent political climate that might relate to farms? Workers. Right. With the idea of cutting off migration, that could equal a shortage in labor. Yeah, that would be an issue. They've done it before, and it has caused an issue. That's a tough question. That's the one that you're getting here, but man, it'd be tough without this review. In both LDCs and MDCs, we already did this. The biggest problem they share, food gets too cheap and they can't make a profit. I predid that twice. Oh well. All right, next. Yeah, it's tiny, I'm sorry. This is number 80, then 81, then 82. According to the map problems. Okay, guys. If I were to ask you, I don't care, don't worry about what the answers are up there. If I were to ask you guys, in which countries do they have a problem getting protein in their diet? You should know that protein is a sign of MDCs. LDCs, and the very poorest LDCs have problems getting protein in their diet. So, Haiti, or maybe Guatemala, or Bolivia, Namibia in Africa, maybe Afghanistan, they have problems getting protein in their diet. The very poorest LDCs, got it? And they're more likely to get their protein from some plants, because you can. There are some plants that have a little bit of protein in them. Okay. If I say to you, people spend less than 20% of their income on food, that's low. So you should be looking for the list of countries that are all clearly MDCs. Okay? If I say more than 40% of average income is spent on food, let's say I say over 50%, now you're thinking very low LDCs. Think of landlocked countries. You know, those are quite often very low LDCs, if that helps at all. You know, stage 2 countries that are landlocked would definitely be good examples. So Malawi, probably Mongolia, I would guess maybe as well, right? These would be some examples, right? All right, next slide. Rice, okay. So if I said rice is the leading energy source, then you should be thinking of countries that have the climate that's good for rice, right? You should remember your maps a little bit. Oh, I didn't go over this too much. Remember your maps. You should know that rice tends to be monsoon weather, coastal and closer to the equator, right? That's the intense cultivation that's near there. There's intense cultivation rice, intense cultivation non-rice. They're right on top of each other, except the non-rice tends to be a little bit north of the rice, right? There's a good question. Gotta figure out how I'm gonna do this. Some of these are new questions I'm thinking of making. According to the map of dietary energy by source, corn is the leading energy source, and then you should be thinking about Latin America in general. So if you're thinking about Latin America, your answer should be Iran and India, 2 very prominent countries in Latin America. India being right below the United States, and Iran being right underneath there. Okay, good. I'm glad you all agree with me. Iran and India are in Latin America. Okay. Let's just see how the home crowd do. Okay. People are more productive in more developed countries. You should know this. Again and again, this is always the answer. Because people in more developed countries like America, like all of us, we're simply just better people. No, oh my God, that'd be horrible if any of you thought that. You're not better than anyone else. What's wrong with you? Because we have access to what? Technology. Overwhelmingly, it's the access to technology. Technology, machinery. Development prospects are limited in sub-Saharan Africa because believe with this one, it's all of the above. But let's see, what if I said development prospects are limited because of all but which means not this one. Colonial legacy, definitely. Poor leadership, definitely. Remember, instability can lead to problems, right? Capacity of the land to produce food, that is a problem. Overworked agricultural land, yes, that can happen. This one maybe doesn't make as much sense, the lack of monsoon rains. I might rephrase that false answer for letter D to make it even more obviously false, okay? But the important thing to remember with this one is that instability is just as much a factor. You guys can listen to the game. Instability and refugees and things like that can be just as much of a factor for farming as everything else. Okay. What do smaller farms use less of than large farms? Anything that costs money, because they can't do things. So look at the letter one, the bottom one. It says because of economies of scale, they're less likely to do all of the non-organic methods. That's actually true. That's a good solid answer. I could see keeping that and getting rid of some of the other ones. And they're most likely going to go for those specialty markets, right? So remember, guys, things like the specialty market. What if I were to add that into that question? Specialty market, niche market, add that kind of stuff into that question. They're more likely to try and go for that kind of thing. Okay. So that would be a good false answer, right? They're all likely to do all of the which, but go for a specialty market. No, they would be more likely to do that. Marcus, question, I want to move on.
Okay, I thought being a small farm was kind of part of that niche market.
No, but the idea is that it can be. They don't have to, but it's a good idea to do the niche market because you're a small farm, you have a hard time doing the things that corporate farms do. You don't have to be niche foods. You could try and do things that corporate farms do.
Isn't the extra question
Because because of economies of scale, they are less likely to do non-organic things. They are less likely to use chemicals or machines or process the foods because they're a small farm. They can't afford that equipment. Okay? Okay. How is the distribution of chickens different here than in China? We've gone over this in a lot of the classes. Condensed, clustered, and packed mean the same thing. China, I don't care if I switch countries, guys. If I were to do Europe versus India, it doesn't matter. India, China, they're more likely to have small farms. So they're more likely to be spread out. How does monoculture make a country more susceptible to problems? If you have one plant in one area, lack of biodiversity, one crop can get hit by a pest, one crop can get hit by a disease. The plants are not weaker, but A and B are the best answers for 61 there. Okay. Last slide. Sustainable agriculture is similar to subsistence. No. More sensitive land management? Yes. Okay, guys, hold on. I have people ask me all day what sustainable means. I could make this a longer question and make it 2 parts. So for this one, I could make it 2 parts. And the idea of sustainable is that it can go on for generations. Meaning, what you're doing to the soil and to the resources, you're not depleting them. You're allowing them to rejuvenate so they can be used again and again and again. Get the idea? You're not depleting them to the point where they cannot be used again. So I can make it a 2-part question. It does this and this, all right? So make sure you understand that about sustainable, what the definition of it is. Because of the use of blank, it is now more likely than ever the entire crop may be lost to disease or pest. Monoculture, another monoculture question. What is the general location of the largest areas of commercial farms? Oh, you know, okay guys, I don't care if it's commercial farms, I'll give you some alternative questions. For this one, I could say mega farms, right? I could say factory farms. I could say factory farms. I could say truck farms because truck farms only exist in America. So that would be North America. All right, that is it. I will put this up online.